So there's this account, right? And the mom, she's a little older, and her kids are grown, or maybe it's just one child. I can't really remember, but I know that her son is married, and him and his wife have a child. I do know that because I seen that in one of the videos. But she speaks on being an estranged mother, not by choice. She said I'm going to assume her son and the daughter-in-law decided to go no contact with her. And I just want to give a perspective from the child's side. No, I don't know anything about their life or her or anything. No, not at all. Okay? I'm just going to speak from my experience on why I chose to go no contact with my mama. And maybe it will help someone understand. It might not be her that it could be multiple people that could understand. For me, and I'm speaking from my experience, I tried everything I could. I tried everything. Like, it's wild because I went back to the abuser so many times. I'm going to say it like that. My mom would do something really horrific, and I'd walk out of her life, and then I would hear those things. Well, that's your mom. You should forgive her. Yeah, I did a lot of the times. But I'm also her daughter. I felt like nobody ever heard me with that. It was always up to me. I needed to fix something. I needed to. What exactly was I going to fix at 9 years old? What exactly was I going to fix at 12? Sure, ask me that when I'm 25, okay? But by the time 25 got here, I realized that I could not heal if I was still being abused mentally. Because at that time, physical was not going to happen because I was grown now. And I could stick up for myself now. And things were different than they were when I was a little girl. But I begged and cried and prayed and wished that God would touch her heart in some way and allow it to change for the better. I can't tell you how many times I did that. But you find out that you can't change people, even when it's one of your parents. They have to do the changing because they want to do the changing. And that goes for anybody. You're not going to be able to change for the better unless you want to. You have to have that will to want to be better and do better to be able to make better changes in your life and see things differently. I never got it, though. I never got it. So when I went no contact with my mama, it was my last resort. And I know in the beginning of this video, I said I was going to speak for myself, but I think I could speak for a lot of people in this moment right here. Going no contact is the last resort. And it doesn't come out of nowhere. It never comes out of nowhere. It comes out of a lot that has been done, probably never acknowledged or never took accountability for. That's where it comes from. It's our last resort. Nobody doesn't want to have a mom, doesn't want to not have a mom. Nobody doesn't want to not have a dad. Nobody doesn't want that. We want our parents in our life. We want our children to know their grandparents. But we want them to know a better version of them, not how they were to us. We want them to be better and do better. But because my mother was never going to see anything that she'd ever did wrong, she wasn't going to change. You cannot change something that you don't admit to. You can't change anything that you're not taking accountability for. How are you going to change something if you don't think you did anything wrong, right? Well, she didn't. She'll never see what she did wrong. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But I knew the longer I had her in my life, my children were little children, and they were going to grow up. And I didn't want them to grow up around that. And if you ask them today, 2 or 3 of them still remembers something that happened that she caused that never should have. When my children were old enough, I gave them the decision to have a relationship with their biological grandmother just as long as they left me out of it. They chose not to. Why? It wasn't because of anything I told them, because I didn't tell them a lot. I told them the basics, but I didn't tell them everything, and I don't know if I ever could. But I gave them that decision, and they all said no because of what they remembered, not because of me. It doesn't just come out of nowhere, and there is a reason for it. And I don't know. Yeah, it was tough, but it was almost like I woke up the next morning and I had a sense of relief. Like I wasn't going to be hurt anymore. I wasn't going to be mentally abused anymore. I wasn't going to have to deal with that anymore. I was a big girl now, and I could say no. And I did. And I don't regret it at all. So that's what it's like for me as someone that had to go no contact with my mother. And I'm ready to receive judgment. I always have. And that's okay. That's all right. But you know what else is okay and all right? Is that my kids didn't have to go through that. My daughter didn't have to hear her grandmother telling her that she was too fat for that dress and she needed to go on a diet. Not one time did my daughter have to hear that. And I knew she would. I knew she would. Because when I allowed my mother to attend my baby child's service, she didn't say a word to me at the funeral home. That's okay. Word. I even extended the invite to my home for her to have the after-service lunch. And she said nothing to me at the funeral home, nothing to me until it got time for her to leave and everybody had walked out of the kitchen and it was just me and her in the kitchen. And she turns around and says to me and makes a comment about my weight. Just one more dig. Just one more. Because probably in her eyes, she didn't know would she'd ever see me again. And she had to leave up out of here knowing that she'd hurt me that one last time. Or at least that's how I took it. It's not easy going no contact. And it never will be. So, if your friend or sister or coworker or anybody comes to you and says, I have to make this decision, just know that they're doing it for them or they're doing it for their kids, and it was the last resort. It's always the last resort. Every time. I'm okay with my decision. Always. And I know I did it at the right time, and it needed to be done. Because if I didn't, I would have had so many more years of abuse. A lot more. A lot more. But that's what it's like when a kid, an adult, has to go no contact. It's not fun. It's not fun.